Welcome back, people. It's chapter 10 of the Mosaic Integral Bolo Knife series, and we are beginning work on the handle frame here. Well, continuing work if you want to consider the fact that that piece of steel I just put in the forge is Damascus I already made. That's the other half of the edge bar that I ripped for the edge of the bolo knife. So here I'm putting a bend in it. Regular old post vise work, quickest way to get a sharp bend. Since that's twist Damascus, we don't want to be working it cold. Just take short heats, keep it hot. Take any of the side bulge out of it. Now we're going to actually upset that corner in a little bit. Put a little bit more material there in the corner so we don't lose a bunch of it when we grind it square. You're going to see me do that in a few steps. To really upset well, material needs to be hot, so when I start my heat, I'm upsetting for a couple blows, and then I spend the rest of that heat correcting whatever side bend has been inadvertently put on during the upsetting process. A lot of this is kind of basic blacksmithing techniques that I used more when I was doing hardware and architectural work here and there in the past. It's good to know. Get a little rusty at it, but it comes right back. A lot of it is just problem solving, and as you'll see, it took me several heats really to kind of get the shape close enough. It was a little bit of a puzzle. I'm checking it on the steel pattern over there. Definitely want to have a pattern for this. These vertical dawn fog style blown forges are great for bladesmithing. You have to get a little creative for work like this though, because they don't have a floor right inside the door. Now I left this little bit in here so you can see how I drop stuff on the floor like a dum-dum too. And when that happens, I just stick it right back in the forge and gonna try to do better next time. Figured out right away that that wasn't the most efficient way of creating that bend. So I modified my technique here and bending around the thin heel of this anvil. This is a really useful thing about this 148-pound Trenton American pattern anvil, is it's got a thin heel, which is sometimes really useful for bending stuff around that won't fit on anything else. If you had one of those Euro-style double horn anvils with the square horn on back, that would be real handy for this kind of work too. So that U-bend I'm creating is basically the frame wrapping around the end of the Tang. And the challenge is I have to get it sharp enough to where I can still grind a handle frame with sharp outside corners without losing too much wall thickness off the inside of the handle frame. So my corners have to be somewhat sharp. Then I also have to forge the kind of sloped in butt, like the end of the butt is sloped in on the knuckle side. So I have to forge that in so that I have ample wall thickness all the way around after cutting and grinding to fit after the rough forging. Here I'm forging some inside curve to the knuckle side. It has to be kind of like a large, crude, basic outline of my entire handle. It has to have a little arc to it. Lots of little problems to solve. always try to remember how handy the post vise can be just for some quick bending operations with tongs that might get a little bit hung up on if you tried to just do them on the anvil or with tooling or something. Sometimes the answer is just grab it in the vise and a little crank and you're good. Lots of little adjustments here toward the end. And you got to keep your mind constantly engaged and be kind of strategizing, thinking about like what's the most effective way of getting this piece farther toward the shape I want without the byproducts of it doing these other things that I don't want it to do. But in the end, we got it all figured out, and we got a frame forged out that looked like it would be acceptably shaped and have all the right material in the right places. I think this was the last heat right here. Yep. After one more good critical look at it, we're just going to start subcritical annealing it here. Got it surface ground evenly from both sides down to a thickness of about, I think it was 260 thousandths here, and ready to come off of the mag chuck, go deburr it and hit up the next step. We got this thing surface ground down to about 260. We're going to leave a little room to grind it in later in case it warps a little in heat treat, or just to put a better finish on it and stuff. But for now, we're close to dimension, close enough to build the handle around it. I'm going to paint it up with Dicam. Blue for life. And yeah, none of that red nonsense. And then I'll let that dry. Shouldn't take long. The weather's warmed up again here. Pretty much there already. Now we're going to do the old looking for the scribe routine, which is a perennial favorite of mine. Where the heck did I put that scribe? Those are the magic words. Where in the heck did I put that scribe? Hold up. All right, I found it. Here's our handle pattern. And we need to put this handle pattern on in a place where it's going to give us ample handle frame thickness all the way around without any thin spots in our frame. Check that out. That looks good there. And I think we'll be good there. Yeah, let's try that out. And if we scribe this on and it doesn't look right, well, then we can always re-Dicam, shift the pattern a little bit, scribe it again. This is one way of making a frame handle. There are a bunch of different ways. This is one of the more intuitive ways to wrap your mind around. It's going to be a frame handle takedown knife. You can make frame handles that don't take down as well.
So yeah, that looks about good to me. The handle frame, of course, is going to get thinned out quite a bit on the inside here, so that the Tang will fit down in, and on the inside here, so it'll probably be a little bit more like this thickness all the way around. So we have enough to go by to cut our outline now, and then we'll probably scribe the Tang on here and then cut the inside out rather than grind it.
Trimming the length here. I left that bar pretty long. Much better to have to trim a little off the ends than try to, you know, squeeze by stretching a piece that ain't really long enough by the time you get it to shape. Kind of just going into hack mode here and chopping off bits of bulk, just saving me some grinding work and wear and tear on belts. Now we're just roughing in the profile true to size with 36 on that nice big work rest that you get with your broad beck grinder. Very nice indeed to work with. This whole day pretty much I was listening to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History podcast, which is just incredible. I was listening to chapter 6 of a 6-part series on the Pacific theater of World War II, U.S. versus Japan. Just fascinating stuff that, I mean, I've read a lot about it, but Carlin's much better read about it than I am, so he comes up with just fascinating stuff I'd never heard. Almost 6 hours of material he talks about in the last of 6 installments, so if you like history, you like war history, and you like an intriguing approach, even an entertaining approach on it, do yourself a favor if you haven't already and go check out Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. And this series was called Supernova in the Pacific. As you can see, I have used scissors and I've cut out the Tang portion of the handle pattern, cardboard handle pattern I have here at the bench, so that I can now scribe the inside of the frame shape onto the actual metal of what will become the frame. It's a pretty handy way of doing it. It's not super precise, but it just gives us good enough lines to do some rough cuts to. That's all you need. Cutting the inside out on the bandsaw here, of course. Using the push stick as always, is to apply pressure more evenly and steer it better. Keep our fingers away from breakthroughs. So here I've got the slack belt attachment on the broad beck. That allows me to get inside the handle frame where the platen is too thick to get into. Just to smooth out my cuts. Get right to the line with that 36 belt. We're just about done with this. And then I am going to go to hand filing, especially at the end here. Just use some chainsaw files to get in there where the belt grinder couldn't get to. And just kind of clean up, make sure the saw cuts are gone. We don't want any stress risers because this part will need to get heat treated later. We just want everything to have kind of pleasing contours inside there. And boy, I sure use chainsaw files a lot for stuff like this.
Alrighty, so this is a fun step. We got the frame roughed out. Now we can begin to see how it looks along with the rest of the outline of the knife. And now we will just do some little fitment adjusting. You can see that there are some little gaps there to figure out. And so we're going to need to actually true the back of this up finally, true the front of the frame up. We're going to need to fit some alignment pins, and then we're going to need to start working with the end of the tang, cut it a little shorter, thread it, put the block across the frame and figure out the nut and all that kind of stuff. Some fabrication. So here's what I've been working on. I bent the tang a little bit more down to follow the curvature, to continue the curvature of the spine. And I cut a little bit of length off the tang, and then I ground in a little bit to neck it down where it's going to be rounded and then threaded. So that's fit pretty good into that frame. Now, dimensionally, let's take a look here. So that's at a $1.86, and then this way we're at 203-ish. So I'm going to thread this for number 10, probably a number 10 fine thread, and then 1032, that is. It's going to be either 1032 or 24. Either way, that's an outside diameter of 190 nominally, so we are just a couple thou per side under spec for that. That'll be all right in this direction, and then from this direction we'll take it right down to about 190. Then we'll turn it octagonal, and then we will carefully smooth it up round, chamfer the very end, and then we're going to go ahead and use a die and thread this. And then we'll come back and check, and we'll start marking out and making the block that this fits up through, that then locks into this and then pulls the whole frame tight against the back of the bolster. So we went with 1024 after all, because that's what I had the die and the tap for. Got that threaded up real nice. I had triple subcritical annealed the end of the tang some time ago, so the die just cut right through it.
So that'll do it for this installment. Plenty to come. Lots of interesting things about the fabrication. Thanks for staying with me, and stay tuned.